Hello, YouTube. This is Mike. Welcome to the 4 Things That Heal BPD and NPD Abuse channel. And that is really what's most important about this channel is that I have found a very specific, foolproof way to heal if you are somebody who has been traumatized as a result of being in a romantic relationship with somebody who is a toxic borderline, somebody who is untreated, undiagnosed, and or is toxic and has borderline personality disorder and or narcissistic personality disorder. And that's the only thing that I'm here to do, is to tell you the specific 4 things that I did that healed me from this chronic post-traumatic state of hell. And so if you want to know what those 4 things are, wait till the end of the video and I will tell you exactly what to do. So I used to do live streams and I enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed doing live streams on my other channel. And I used to do live streams on this channel. And the reason why I stopped is because I was getting a lot of questions from people who weren't following my suggestions. And so it was getting frustrating because no matter what question they asked, my answer was always the same. Do the 4 things. And then that created some strange little weird feedback loop where there were people who loved my channel. They loved what I had to say as long as I was gossiping about the borderline. But when it came to actually following my instructions, they would be very defiant, and sometimes they were just outright abusive about it. And they wanted me to talk about borderlines and to, give them the trauma porn of that. But when I would tell them, here's what I do to heal, they would say, you don't have all the answers. You're not even a therapist. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm not codependent. And by the way, can you tell me again why the borderline does this? And so because of that, I just decided, you know what, I'm not going to do any more live streams. So I'm just going to give you the information and you can follow the suggestions or not. But even with that, people still leave comments and questions. And one of the things that is very typical codependent, bear in mind, if you are codependent, by definition, here's what I mean by a codependent. A codependent is somebody, in this case, who has been in a romantic relationship with one of these mentally disordered people. You have gotten into their irrational, crazy, hurtful, painful, confusing worlds, and you have been unable to get out. So if that means that you have lasted for, even a couple of weeks, and you've been love bombed and either devalued or discarded, and you, even if you've gone through one of those cycles and then you kept going back, by definition you are a codependent. So forget about whatever definitions you think I have about codependence. This is it. A codependent is somebody who, when in a romantic relationship, you have to take up the slack for somebody else's dysfunction in order to keep the relationship going. It's a dynamic. If you have participated in that dynamic, then by definition, according to me, you are a codependent. Okay? So stop trying to figure out what this kind of codependent and that kind of, you're either a codependent or you're not. And if you're watching this channel and you're in pain because you were associated with one of these people, then by definition, you were in a codependent dynamic and you're still trapped in it, even though you're out of the relationship. And so if you want to know how to get out of that pain, which is all I'm here to help you do, so you can get out of the pain and like me, I have completely healed from that relationship. I don't have any negative feelings. I'm not partially healed. People talk about I'm starting to heal or I began to heal. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in healing. That's like, if you've got some pustule on your arm that's painful and it's just oozing pus, and one day it gets a little better and you say, hey, I'm starting to heal. but it still hurts. It's still oozing. It doesn't matter. You either are healed or you're not. I want you to look at it like that. And if you want to be healed, I'll tell you exactly how to do that. But the nature of codependence is that people, like drug addicts, they don't want to quit. They don't want to stop. They don't want to get off of the merry-go-round, or they can't get off of the merry-go-round because on a deep unconscious level, they believe that their survival depends on them staying in it, staying with that person. Even if you haven't seen them for a year, you're still obsessed with them and thinking about them. That's still being trapped in codependence. I don't ever think about my borderline ex except when I come on here to do these videos, and if I didn't have this channel, I wouldn't even think about her. I forget her name quite frequently. So if you want to be in that space where the thought of your borderline ex is the same as that hangnail you had, last year, that it's now once you fix the problem, you don't worry about it. You get on with your life. If you want that feeling, then I have a specific set of instructions for you. And if you qualify, meaning that you have been in a romantic relationship with one of these people and it damaged you, and you choose not to do my suggestions, great. Why do you want me to co-sign it for you? So that's why I stopped doing the live streams, because I'm not going to co-sign it. Let me give you an example. So here this person says, "Hi, Mike. I first want to say I love your channel as I appreciate someone that tells it." So this is very codependent. He's going to stroke my ego. And at some point, he's then going to tell me why he's different. He's different, and I'm not like you or those other people, so I don't have to do what you're suggesting. And he's going to want me to co-sign that. I'm not going to read it because it's, the other thing, here's another thing. Look, your relationship with your borderline was identical to everybody else's relationship in the things that matter. All of the details, like the color of her hair and how long you were together, and she said this and you said that, all of that is meaningless. You think that means something. You think if I spend a half an hour reading an entire novel about all of the details of your relationship, then I'm going to go, oh, well, in that case, oh, she had brown eyes. Oh, well, a BPD with brown eyes is different. And oh, you're only 5'6". Well, once you get beneath 5'7", then, codependence is very different. So you're right. You don't need to do the 4 things. You're special. Although the pain you feel is identical, even though the trauma you feel is identical to everybody else, even though those things are the same, the important things are the same. You were with a person who love bombed you and then discarded you, who was constantly devaluing you and gaslighting you, and your need to be loved and accepted by them drove you to chase after them in all kinds of really painful, irrational ways. Even though all of that is exactly the same as everybody else, all these other superficial things are different. Therefore, you don't have to follow the 4 things. And this is typical unconscious resistance. And my answer to everybody's question, because this is the question they would ask. They'd ask questions like, well, I'm only 5'6.5", and I have 1 blue eye and 1 brown eye. So how does that mean that it's okay for me to, and I would say, do the 4 things? Well, but you don't know you're not So I'm going to try and get through all this because somebody wrote this huge novel with all this very specific, self-absorbed details about their specific thing, even though the things that are important are exactly like everybody else's experience. I'm not going to read all this. I'm just going to try and get through it. I was in a relationship for 5 years with a woman with BPD, and then blah, 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 blah. And listen to this. Some differences are, so he's going to tell us the differences. Some differences are, she never ghosted me ever. She was never one to drink or abuse any substances ever. She had never drank or done drugs in her life. And did she love bomb you, make you feel safe, and then devalue or discard you? Did she give you the cold shoulder? Did she refuse to talk to you? Did she accuse you of doing or thinking things you didn't do? Did she hurt you and confuse you in really irrational ways that somebody who didn't have a personality disorder wouldn't do? Then who gives a crap? It's all meaningless details. What's important is the same. And if it's not, then she's not BPD. Let's see. She never drank or did drugs in her life. I tried to end the relationship several times. What do you mean you tried to end the relationship? You either end it or you don't. I mean, is there ever a time, this is one of I remember having this as a kid, an immature, either a teenager or a young adult, where when, I would get tired of some woman I was dating, I would then go, hey, you know what? It's just not working out, and, we're not right for each other, so you can understand why we should break up, right? So we're cool, right? And of course, no. What are you so upset about? I just explained to you why it doesn't work for me. Can't you see that it's best for us, meaning me, that we end it? Why are you so upset? So what do you mean you tried to end the relationship? You either ended it or you didn't. So instead of saying you tried to end the relationship, in other words, you were unwilling to leave. That's the bottom line. So he tried to end the relationship, but whenever he did, a spaceship would come down and put him in a state of being in a trance, and then he couldn't remember why he was leaving. He tried, he just couldn't. He's a victim of circumstance. Tried to end the relationship several times as I knew it was toxic, but she would always show up at my business I own and cry and plead with me not to leave her. And of course, that is completely unique to you. No other person dating a borderline has ever experienced that. So since that to that extreme happened to you, then I've got to co-sign it. Of course you couldn't leave. You couldn't do the four things. You didn't have to do everything within your power to go no contact. I'm so sorry that you got the impression that you had to act just like every other human in existence. You're unique, and your BPD partner is unique. And why we don't see that is, you're explaining to us so that we do understand. She cried and plead with me not to leave her, and I would always cave in. My question is, take some, a whole giant 3 or 4 paragraphs to get to that. My question is this. I understand that I was codependent, so he's not anymore, but he was. I understand that I was codependent, but it's not really something that stems from childhood. My parents were married 47 years until my father passed away in 2016. Listen to this part. I am an only child and had a wonderful childhood. You don't think that being an only child may have had something to do with it? Listen, let me say that my upbringing was extremely dysfunctional and toxic, and I was, I became a codependent as a result, and other things as a result of it. My parents never divorced. My parents were married for over 50 years until my father passed away. And my mother never remarried. My parents never got physical. There was never any physical beating. None of the kids got physically beat. We very rarely got yelled at. If you were to look at us from the outside, you would think we were the perfect family. So codependence is codependence. It doesn't matter. Again, you're not unique. You want me to tell you that you're special, and so therefore you don't need to do. It's like if you go into the doctor's office and you've got this bleeding pustule, giant blister on your shoulder that's infected, and you go to the doctor and he says, you have such and such infection. Here's some antibiotics. Follow the directions, take the antibiotics. Okay, I'm reading the bottle here, but the thing is, I grew up in Chicago, and it was winter, and this is Florida. So Florida is warmer. So does that still apply to me? The doctor is going to say, let me repeat myself. You have such and such bacterial infection. Here's the antibiotics. Take them and it will get rid of your infection. Yeah. No, I understand that part. The thing is, though, that I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. And so we don't believe if you went to church on Sundays as a kid, right? So I didn't. I went to church on Saturdays. So my question to you is, because I'm slightly different than you in this way, do I still need to take the antibiotics? So you don't understand what codependence is if you think that there is a classical codependent. There isn't. Codependence is the result of one thing and one thing only. You had a perception that your worth was based on what you do, not who you are. I don't care if you get that perception at the age of 25 or if it was something that happened to you when you were an infant. You want to say, my childhood was awesome, it was perfect, but I somehow stepped in a bear trap, and so I'm not a codependent like you. So do I have to do the four things? And if I give you the benefit of the doubt, and you were dropped onto this planet by aliens at the age of 25, and therefore you didn't have that same dysfunctional specifics that I did, the bottom line is the same. Wherever you got the impression, whether it was real or imagined, that your value is based on what you do, not who you are, then you will chase after emotionally unavailable people like a borderline or a narcissist, whatever. And if you want to tell me that if I had never met the borderline, I never would have become codependent, that's fine with me. Then it's like saying, you had a tendency within you. Some people get cancer or other illnesses because they have a genetic predisposition and they smoke and that triggers it. Or they go through a period of stress and that triggers it. If you're going to tell me that you were perfectly normal and she happened to trigger within you a codependent response, I don't care. It doesn't matter. You're not unique. This is all just a huge, giant book to snow me and bullshit me so that I will co-sign your special, unique scenario and say that you don't need to do the four things. A codependent is a codependent. I don't care. I believe it happens in childhood, but if you prove me wrong, it won't change a damn thing. You magically become one because the borderline was so able to snow you and pull you into it. You still ended up in a codependent hamster wheel where, at the very least, in that relationship, your worth to them was based on what you do, not who you are. Period. End of story. So does that describe you? During the relationship, did you not feel seen? Were you not loved for who you were? Was your acts of love often misinterpreted? And were you told you were a horrible, evil person that wanted to destroy them when really all you just did was the most loving, kind thing? Let me give you an example. If you, Will Smith, we know he's verbally shared this to the world, that when his wife, Jada Pinkett, who I believe is probably an NPD, when she was 37, he decided he was going to spend the next 3 years creating the perfect 40th birthday party for her. Spent 3 years, who knows how many hours, who knows how many tens of thousands of dollars, got Mary J. Blige to sing for a birthday party. And when after he gave her this most incredible, beautiful, loving gift from the depth of his heart, her response to him was she was disgusted at the display of his ego. I mean, it just so incredibly devalued him. That, if you've had something like that happen to you and it hurt you to the point where you felt you had to work even harder to get somebody's love and appreciation, you by definition are a codependent. I don't give a crap if you had the perfect childhood or not. All right? So none of this means anything. I don't care. You don't think it stems from your childhood. I think you're full of crap. I think you're in complete denial and uneducated about how that works. But that's fine. Even if you're right, it doesn't matter. You're a codependent now. How you got there? Irrelevant. All right, so blah, 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 my specific person and this and that sounds like everybody else except a slight little difference which makes me unique. And then she did this and then I did that. So, and then he goes on to say, my question is the CODA steps, is that going to help me do? I don't even know. Is that a question? Are you asking me what are the CODA steps going to help you do? I don't consider myself a classic codependent. Well, as we know, borderlines don't consider themselves to be borderlines. So what you think about yourself is almost as important as the objective facts. I'm being sarcastic with you, and it's not because I'm trying to hurt your feelings. I'm just trying to reflect back to you how ridiculous your thought process is. Look, just get honest. You don't want to do it. You haven't even investigated it. You're asking me what the CODA steps are, which means you haven't done them. You haven't looked into them. So you want me to tell you ahead of time what they're going to do for you. I don't know what they're going to do for you. The point of them is to get you to the place where you're no longer in pain. Are you in pain? Are you still wrapped up? If you're on this channel, you are. So you can either follow the suggestions or not. If you think, based on your expertise that got you in this horrific relationship, your best thinking, your sane, different, perfect childhood and non-codependent personality got you into this extremely dysfunctional, hurtful relationship that, according to you, lasted for 5 years. If that's what got you there and you want to keep using that same thinking to get you out of that pain, please feel free. Nobody's stopping you. Go right ahead. What do you want from me? Why do you want me to co-sign this for you? Okay. I don't consider myself a classic codependent. I knew I was toxic under normal circumstances. I knew it was toxic under. I would not have tolerated by 3 years in, blah, blah, blah. So very specific. In other words, you had a surgery, so that changed everything. It doesn't matter. Do you realize it doesn't matter what made you vulnerable enough to want their love? What do you want from me? Seriously, what do you expect me to say? I still love her very much. She was the love of my life, even if it wasn't real. I'm sorry, what? Explain that again. She was the love of your life, even though it wasn't real. Well, which one was it? Was it real or was it not? Were you deluded or was it real? So, sorry, I mean, do you see how out of touch you are? You can't even figure out what's real. You can't even tell what's real within your own feelings, and you want me to give you a pass? You sound like you're in a tremendous state of dysfunction. You sound like you are somebody who is in, that's what's called cognitive dissonance, which is a very toxic state as a result of being in codependent trauma. You want me to give you a pass? You are so far the poster boy for unaware, in denial codependence. You are acting exactly like a codependent who is typically in denial and doesn't want to do the work to heal. You're addicted to being crazy. She was also never physically abusive. Neither was mine. I know she has a mental disorder, and yet you still want to be with her. And I know I hold no ill will towards her, That's true. Here's typical thing. If you're still in the denial part, you've been discarded or the relationship has ended for whatever reason, or you haven't been hoovered back yet, then when you still have hope, meaning you're still addicted to the hope of what might happen, you have no ill will. In fact, your eyes fill with tears as you mourn for how sad it is that they can't allow themselves to be loved. And then what will happen, assuming this is the final discard, and if not, they'll hoover you back and then, you'll continue the cycle for however long. But at some point, you will get discarded completely, and then after however long it takes, it will become painfully aware to you that she's never coming back, and there's no hope of you getting back together with her and making it work. Then all of this lack of ill will that you have, and all of this love, this unconditional love and acceptance is going to be replaced by rage. And you're going to be filled with anger and hurt, and you're going to want revenge, and you're going to want her to know what she did to you. So you just haven't got there yet. This is typical codependent. You are the poster child for codependence right now. Any advice you would give would be appreciated. All right, so for your special scenario, here is my advice. Do the 4 things. Oh, you don't know what the 4 things are? Let me tell you. Number 1, you go complete no contact, meaning that you make it impossible for them to contact you ever again. No contact doesn't mean I didn't call them today. And oops, she just called. I tried to go no contact, but that's her knocking at the door right now. I tried to go no contact. No, going no contact is if she comes to your work, she comes to your business, she calls you on the phone, she knocks on your door, whatever it is that she does to contact you, you do whatever the hell it takes to make that impossible. You get a restraining order. You move. You quit. You get another job. You throw your phone in the river. Oh, but that's inconvenient. I'm sorry. What do you want? If you were living in an apartment that was over a radioactive toxic dump, and somebody comes by and says from the health department, says, listen, there's toxic levels of radiation, you have to move. And you say, yeah, but I just put down a deposit on this apartment. I just bought this house. Well, I'm sorry, but if you stay here, you're going to die. I know, but it's so inconvenient. Well, do you want to die or do you want to live? Are you willing to lose money? Are you willing to be inconvenienced to save your life? Then go no contact. Make it impossible for them to contact you. Number 2, so that's number 1, go no contact. Number 2, you work all 12 steps of Codependence Anonymous, or whatever 12-step program works for you. And most importantly, you get to do the 4th step as quickly as you can, which is to deal with your resentments and your expectations and your selfish attachments. You become aware of your selfishness. So I didn't say that you have to go to CODA meetings and like it. A lot of people go, Mike, I tried going to CODA, but all those people are so depressed and they're so negative. And it's like, yeah, they're codependents and they're in pain and they're sick and they need help. It's like saying, I tried to go to the hospital to get my broken arm fixed, but there was so many other sick people in there and that just depressed me. Yeah, well, that's where sick people go. They go to hospitals. So negative, sad, depressed codependents go to Codependence Anonymous. I didn't say go to meetings and like it. I said go to meetings and work the steps with a sponsor. So that's number 2. Go to meetings, work the steps with a sponsor. Number 3 is when you can afford it, work with a psychologist. Number 4 is do daily meditation. Now, the truth is that I changed this around because I would give people the 4 steps and they would say, oh yeah, I'm doing number 1 and number 3, or I'm doing number 3 and number 4. And then I came to realize that people were avoiding the most important part of it, which is working the 12 steps with a sponsor. So it doesn't work if you don't do thing one and thing two. Those are the two things that I give you that are non-negotiable. In my experience, if you don't do thing one and thing two, then what will happen is you might get, if you're lucky, you might get some diminishing symptoms. You might think you're beginning to heal, but then something will happen and then you will be stimulated and you'll be full of pain. And next thing you know, instead of being with a borderline, you're with a narcissist. Or it's been 20 years and you still can't stop thinking about it. You still can't stop waking up in the middle of the night feeling really traumatized because who is she? Where is she with right now? Or where is she? Who is she with right now? So if you do thing one and thing two completely with everything that you have, my guarantee is that you will heal from that relationship. Thing three is not required because working with a psychologist, although it's recommended if you can find a good psychologist to work with, because while you're working the steps, you can then get a deeper understanding of what's happening in your unconscious. Oh, this is my mom. I'm trying to relive my relationship with my mother, who I now realize didn't really make me feel loved and accepted, and I'm chasing after her, and I didn't realize that even though we had a perfect childhood. Oh, that's what a therapist is for. But therapy alone, in my experience, won't fix it. I could rattle off names of people who are therapists on YouTube, people who are life coaches on YouTube dealing with narcissism who still haven't got it. And it's because they're wrapped up in therapy, philosophy, self-help, but they're not working the steps. So yes, I am making a very bold, dogmatic statement, which is that in my experience, the only guaranteed cure for the codependent trauma and PTSD is working the 12 steps, especially step number 4. And in my experience, if you don't do that, there is a very good chance you will never completely heal. I can't say you won't ever heal because anything is possible, but I would just go ahead and if I had to wager anybody who is as traumatized as we are, if you don't do the steps, I would win the bet. I would take that bet to Vegas. I would bet every single penny I had that if you don't do thing number 2, you'll never completely heal. That's how confident I am in it. So number 3 is great, but it's not absolutely necessary because looking deep into your unconscious and knowing why you do it won't give you the power to change. And then number 4, which is daily meditation, I just put that in there for emphasis because you have to have some kind of experience that is an equivalent to a spiritual experience, even if you're an atheist. You have to have some kind of experience of connecting with something greater than you, whether that's life force energy or gravity or love or common sense and meditation has the ability to give people an objective view of themselves without being emotionally attached, and it gives you an ability to see things from a higher perspective. And so I emphasize that because it's important. It actually helps change the neurons of the brain. But you actually do that in the 12 steps. The 11th step talks about meditation. So really, you just have to do thing 1 and thing 2. If you want to do thing 3, great. But you have to do thing 1 and thing 2. And if you, even with all of this giant, huge novel of why you're different, except for the things that are exactly the same as every other codependent relationship with an untreated borderline, even though all of those things are exactly the same, all of these other minor superficial differences are completely meaningless, and you're using them to bullshit yourself so that you won't actually go and do the work. And what is the point? Not because I say it. I have no need to be right. I don't care if you agree with me or not. I'm simply telling you what I've done that's healed me, and in my observation, which hasn't changed, this is what's helped everybody else. And if you Look at the comments on my channel. You are seeing more and more people saying, I did the 4 things and you were absolutely right. And my life is so much better now. If you want to feel better, stop with the craziness and just do it. You have nothing to lose. It won't cost you anything. Thing 1 and thing 2 are completely free. They don't cost you a dime. You'll get people in your life that care about you. You'll have a support system. And if I'm wrong, which you don't know because you haven't done anything about it yet, if I'm wrong, then you will have lost nothing. And if you do these free things that won't cost you anything, and after doing them completely, you don't feel better, then guess what? I will refund you the exact amount of money it cost you to do them, which is nothing. So, short answer is I don't do live streams anymore because my answer to all of your questions is do the 4 things. And if you don't want to do them, then don't. And you'll find out whether or not you ever get better or you don't. If you want what I have, you got to do what I do. If you think that you're different, you're somehow special and you don't have to follow the rules, okay. No, nobody will care except you. All right? So I beat that horse to death. I think I beat it to death 6 or 7 times. So that's it for me, guys. Do the 4 things and heal. If not, then I wish you all the best, regardless of what you do. That's it. I'll see you next time. Take care.